You know, if you'd told me 3 years ago that I'd be standing in a room filled with the world's most powerful people, my own name whispered with respect instead of pity, I probably would have laughed you out of the house. Because 3 years ago, I was the woman whose husband looked her up and down over cold eggs in our marble kitchen and told her she wasn't good enough to stand beside him. I'll never forget the way Derek said it, so matter of fact, like he was reading out an office memo. I'm about to be promoted to senior partner, Gabrielle. I need a wife who fits the picture. Someone who doesn't embarrass me. That morning, I realized I'd spent 8 years making myself smaller so he could shine brighter. 8 years letting his words chip away at the edges of who I was. I'd gripped the countertop, felt my world shatter, and I still asked, "Don't you love me?" He replied, "Love isn't enough." And then he handed me divorce papers like it was just another business deal. I can't lie, the first few weeks after he left were a mess. If you've ever had your heart broken so completely that you question every memory, you know what I mean. I sat on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m. surrounded by empty ice cream containers, trying to numb the silence. Every room in that big, expensive house felt haunted. For days, I let his words echo in my mind, too much, too big, not enough. But somewhere between the legal paperwork and the tears, anger started to replace sadness. Not the kind that flares up and burns out, but the kind that settles in your bones and starts to build something. I'd spent too long apologizing for taking up space, for having dreams, for wanting more. I realized, painfully and beautifully, that Derek's cruelty was a gift. It set me free. I didn't need his permission to exist, to be myself, or to dream again. Let me back up a sec. Before I was Derek's wife, I was Gabrielle, a woman with a business degree, a sketchbook full of designs, and a fire to create fashion that made women like me feel beautiful. But life happens, dreams get postponed, and sometimes we give them up entirely for someone else's ambition. Well, not anymore. That morning, after I'd signed the divorce papers, my own little act of defiance, I made myself tea, sat at the kitchen island, and opened an old notebook. At the top of the page I wrote, "Who is Gabrielle Johnson?" By sunrise, I'd filled 12 pages with memories, dreams, regrets, and plans. That notebook became my lifeline, a reminder that I'd survived worse than heartbreak and I wasn't finished yet. The first thing I did was walk into a boutique I'd always admired. Carol, the owner, was my size, my age, and greeted me with the kind of warmth I hadn't felt in years. "What stopped you from coming in before?" she asked. I thought I wasn't the right type for beautiful clothes. She laughed, genuinely, not mean. "Honey, the only wrong type is the one who lets someone else define her worth." I tried on a wrap dress in emerald green, looked in the mirror, and for the first time in ages, I saw myself strong, radiant, unapologetic. That dress was the start of curves and confidence, the fashion line I'd dreamed up in my 20s but never dared to launch. You think launching a business is just about great ideas? Try doing it when you've spent years being told you're too much. But I poured every lesson, every ache, every hope into that first collection. 10 pieces, wrap dresses, blazers, evening gowns, every stitch screaming, "You deserve to be seen." Instead of hiring models, I stood in front of the camera myself, terrified but determined. When Sarah, a local photographer, snapped my photo in that same emerald dress, she said, "Women need to see themselves, not some airbrushed ideal." We posted the photos online, and within days, women from all over were writing in, "Where can I buy this? Thank you for seeing us." My first run sold out in 6 hours. It was chaos, incredible, exhilarating chaos. Behind the scenes, it was women helping women. Maria, my manufacturer, said, "Fit is everything." Together, we designed clothes for bodies like mine. No more hiding, no more shrinking. The night of my first big launch, Jonathan Hayes reached out. Now, Jonathan is the type of name that makes people nervous in boardrooms. A tech billionaire, a disruptor. He didn't want to invest in my company, at least not at first. He wanted to talk about purpose, about building something bigger than both of us. Our partnership started with business and evolved into something I'd almost given up on, real love. The kind that doesn't ask you to change. Jonathan never saw me as a project. He listened, supported, and never once implied I should be less. Our work together turned curves and confidence into an international brand. but it also turned two broken people into a real team. You know what I mean? When someone loves you for exactly who you are, not who you might become for them, everything changes. We created a foundation to mentor young women, a scholarship for future entrepreneurs, and every step of the way, Jonathan was right there, treating my dreams with as much seriousness as his own. A year later, standing backstage at a morning show, about to tell my story to millions, I realized I wasn't nervous. I was ready. I was wearing a blazer from my own collection, and Jonathan texted me, "Remember, you're not just representing your brand. You're speaking for every woman who's ever been told to shrink." That day, our hashtag #RefuseToShrink started trending. Stories poured in. Women leaving bad relationships, launching businesses, finding themselves again. And then, life gave me a full circle moment. A letter arrived, an invitation to the most prestigious industry gala, sent by none other than Derek himself. "It would be good to see you," he wrote, as if our past was a minor inconvenience. I could have ignored it. Part of me wanted to. But I decided to go, not to show off, not for revenge, but to prove to myself how far I'd come. You should have seen me walking into that ballroom in a dress I'd designed with my team, Jonathan at my side, and our twins at home with their grandmother. For once, the cameras flashed for me, not for the man beside me. When I locked eyes with Derek, I saw shock, regret, maybe even a hint of awe. But you know what? I didn't care. He looked smaller, and I felt whole. The crowd asked about my business, my mission, not about my dress size or my husband. The night ended with me winning the award for innovation and social impact, and as I accepted the trophy, I saw dozens of women in the crowd nodding along. I said, sometimes, the most revolutionary thing you can do is refuse to be smaller than you are. Build something so big, they can't look away. Afterward, a young woman found me, eyes shining with hope. "You gave me the courage to leave a toxic relationship and start over." That was the real win. The movement that started with my heartbreak was now helping women rewrite their own stories. Of course, the next morning, Derek was on TV, trying to minimize my success, calling curves and confidence, just one of many businesses. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Because I realized, for the first time, his opinion didn't matter. My worth had never depended on his approval or anyone else's. Now, Jonathan and I are building more than a business. We're building a legacy. We're raising twins who will grow up knowing they're worthy just as they are, watching their mom run a company, watching their dad champion her every step. Our new institute funds women who want to create something for themselves, so no one ever has to wait for permission again. Yeah. The woman who was told she was too much, too big, too ambitious to stand beside a successful man? She found a partner who feels lucky to stand beside her. She built a life where she's celebrated, not tolerated, and helps other women do the same. I'll leave you with this. Don't let anyone else define your story. If you're in that dark place, just know, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the beginning of something beautiful. Now it's your turn. What moment in this journey speaks to you? What dream are you building, even if someone told you it's impossible? I want to hear your stories, your struggles, your wins. Because I promise, your voice matters, and the world is waiting to hear it.